Under the blazing sun of the untamed plains, she had finally allowed herself to hope. A widow, worn by loss yet steadfast in heart, had entrusted her dreams and fears to the rancher who had always been kind, who had offered comfort in a world that had often been cruel. In that quiet moment, their eyes met with unspoken understanding, and for the first time in many moons, she felt the fragile stirrings of love and trust bloom within her chest. The wind carried whispers of possibility across the fields, hinting at a future she dared to imagine. But the very next day, the world shifted in an instant. The rancher's family, bound by rigid pride and long-held prejudices, rejected her without mercy. The warmth that had sparked between them was met with icy disdain, their words sharp as barbed wire, leaving her standing at the edge of the ranch, her heart aching and her spirit tested. Each step away from the only place she had dared to call safe felt heavier than the last, as the whispers of the past threatened to drown out the fragile courage she had just summoned. In that moment of solitude, she realized the depth of betrayal. The hand she had reached for in trust now pushed her away, and the promises that seemed certain now lay in ruins. Yet, even in despair, her gaze swept over the wide-open horizon, where endless possibilities stretched beyond the immediate pain. The plains, unyielding and vast, seemed to whisper to her soul that endurance and resilience could emerge from heartbreak, if only one dared to walk forward. Every beat of her heart became a testament to survival, a quiet rebellion against the injustice thrust upon her. Memories of her late husband and the love they had shared mingled with the flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, her path would intersect with kindness once more. The widow understood that the world could be cruel, but within the trials lay a lesson etched in the dust and the wind. Strength is forged in moments when the heart is tested beyond measure. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the ranch, the widow took her first determined step away from rejection and toward her destiny. There was no room for despair in a heart that still dared to hope, no room for surrender when the winds of the West carried whispers of opportunity, courage, and unexpected redemption. Her story was only beginning, and every viewer would soon bear witness to a journey where love, betrayal, and resilience would collide in ways none could foresee. The morning after her rejection was heavy with silence. The widow wandered through the outskirts of the ranch, where the scent of wild sage and dust hung in the air, mingling with the bitter taste of betrayal. Each footstep was a reminder of the cold dismissal she had endured, and yet, beneath the weight of heartbreak, a flicker of determination began to kindle within her. She refused to let despair dictate her fate, for the plains had taught her that survival demanded more than tears. It required courage, wit, and an unwavering heart. She recalled the rancher's gaze, warm and steady the night before, and though the memory was now tainted by his family's cruelty, it reminded her of what genuine kindness could look like. In the quiet of the open fields, she allowed herself a small, secret hope, a fragile ember of possibility that the rancher's loyalty might still shine through the shadow of his family's rigid rules. Yet even as she hoped, the widow knew the journey ahead would not bend for her convenience. She had to forge her path alone, step by determined step. By midday, she had discovered a small creek that had escaped her notice before. Its waters glistened like liquid silver under the sun, offering a rare moment of solace. Kneeling beside it, she cupped her hands and drank deeply, feeling the coolness flow through her as if the land itself were whispering encouragement. In that quiet communion with nature, she made a silent vow. No matter the cruelty she had faced, no force would extinguish the strength growing quietly within her. As she continued her walk through the rugged terrain, the widow began to observe the hidden life of the plains. The hawks circling above, the rustle of coyotes in the brush, the distant murmur of a herd. Each sound, each movement, reminded her that life carried on, indifferent to human pain, yet abundant in opportunities for those willing to seek them. The widow's heart, though wounded, began to synchronize with the rhythm of the land itself, embracing its trials as lessons in resilience. By nightfall, she had reached a small, abandoned cabin tucked into the edge of a ravine. Its wood was weathered, and its door creaked as if warning intruders. yet she felt an unexpected sense of refuge. Lighting a small fire with trembling hands, she allowed herself a brief moment of rest, knowing that the next day would demand even greater resolve. In the flickering shadows, the widow understood that this was more than a place to sleep. It was the first step in reclaiming her power, her dignity, and her future. Dawn broke with a pale, hesitant light, and the widow rose with renewed purpose. The hardships of yesterday had sharpened her senses, and she moved through the plains with the quiet precision of someone who had learned to read the land. Every ridge, every gulch, seemed to offer both peril and promise, and she embraced the duality, knowing that mastery of the terrain was her first ally against the cruelty of men. Her heart beat with determination, a drum in sync with the untamed rhythm of the West. Her thoughts returned to the rancher, the man who had sparked the brief flicker of happiness in her life. Though his family had cast her out, she could not erase the memory of his gentleness, his rare acknowledgment of her humanity. The widow wondered if he would ever defy them, whether he possessed the courage to honor his own heart. Yet she knew that she could no longer wait for salvation from another. She had to become the architect of her own destiny, and the plains themselves would be both her teacher and her ally. By mid-morning, she stumbled upon a small herd of wild horses grazing in a distant valley. Their freedom, untethered and bold, stirred something deep within her spirit. Observing them, she realized that survival was not merely endurance. It was the reclamation of choice, the refusal to be defined by the constraints others imposed. Just as these horses roamed freely, she vowed to reclaim the power to direct her own life, unbound by the narrow judgments of those who could not see her worth. As she pressed forward, the widow encountered a solitary traveler, a weathered old man with a wide-brimmed hat and eyes that carried stories of countless trials. He offered her a small loaf of bread and a nod of recognition, as if acknowledging her struggle before any words were spoken. In that brief exchange, she felt a renewed sense of connection to the larger world, a reminder that kindness existed even in the harshest landscapes, and that alliances could be found in the most unexpected places. By evening, she had found herself overlooking a cliff that offered a sweeping view of the valley below. The setting sun cast a golden haze, and for the first time since her rejection, the widow felt the stirrings of hope transform into resolve. The plains, with their unforgiving beauty, had begun to teach her that endurance and courage were not gifts. They were choices. And in that choice, she found the spark that would guide her through the trials yet to come, shaping her into someone capable of confronting the very forces that had once sought to push her aside. The next morning, the widow awoke to a chorus of distant crows and the whisper of wind through the canyon. She packed her meager belongings, knowing that comfort would not accompany her, yet determination surged stronger than the emptiness she had felt the day before. Every step across the rugged terrain seemed to echo with the whispers of ancestors, as if the land itself were acknowledging her courage. She was no longer just a victim of circumstance. She had become a force, quietly gathering strength. As she descended into the valley, she encountered a small clearing, bathed in sunlight and dotted with wildflowers that had persisted despite the harshness of the land. Kneeling to touch them, she felt an unexpected warmth, a reminder that life persisted, even in the face of adversity. The widow understood that, much like these tenacious flowers, she too could thrive if she embraced patience, resilience, and quiet defiance against the injustices that had been cast upon her. Suddenly, a distant clatter of hooves reached her ears. She looked up and saw a young rider approaching, dust rising from the trail behind him. His eyes were sharp, and his expression a mixture of curiosity and caution. The widow's heart raced, not from fear, but from the sudden recognition that the world was vast and full of unpredictable encounters. Every meeting, every stranger on these plains, carried the potential to alter the course of her journey, for better or for worse. The rider slowed as he drew near, tipping his hat in acknowledgement. "You're far from the ranch," he said cautiously, his voice carrying both respect and wonder. She nodded, choosing not to explain the intricacies of her heartbreak or the cruelty she had endured. Words were fragile. Action, however, carried weight. She understood that survival in the West required both discretion and courage, and that the alliances formed along the way could shape destinies in ways that words alone never could. By late afternoon, the widow found herself on the banks of a river, its waters swift and relentless. As she paused to drink, she noticed her reflection staring back. Not the weary, abandoned woman from yesterday, but someone forged by trial, resilient, and awake to possibility. She realized that the path of suffering had transformed into a path of awakening. And in that mirrored image, she saw the promise of strength, self-reliance, and the subtle power that had always been hers, waiting to emerge in full light. Night fell over the valley, and the widow set up a small camp beneath a cluster of sturdy oak trees. The stars above were scattered across the sky like distant lanterns, each one a silent witness to the struggles and triumphs of those who dared to survive in the West. Sitting by her fire, she allowed herself to reflect on the chain of events that had led her here, the betrayal, the rejection, and the fleeting moments of hope. Each had been a teacher, revealing lessons about resilience, courage, and the quiet, unyielding strength of the human spirit. As she adjusted the firewood to ward off the chill, a soft rustle in the underbrush caught her attention. From the shadows emerged a small group of creatures, foxes, drawn by the scent of warmth and food. She smiled quietly, recognizing in them a reflection of her own journey. Cautious, seeking sustenance, and navigating a world filled with danger and opportunity. The widow understood that the West, like life itself, demanded observation, patience, and respect for its rhythm. Those who ignored its subtle cues risked destruction. Those who listened thrived. Suddenly, the faint sound of voices drifted toward her from the distant ridge. At first, she thought it was merely the wind playing tricks, but then she saw shadows moving, figures approaching. Her heart quickened, yet she remained calm, sensing that the plains had trained her to respond with strategy rather than panic. The widow realized that she was no longer the vulnerable woman who had been cast out. She was someone whose presence commanded notice, someone who had learned the ways of survival and respect in equal measure. The figures drew nearer, and she could now make out the details. Men and women mounted on horses, carrying the air of authority and curiosity. They were the neighboring tribes, observers of the land who had long respected the ways of those who tread carefully and honorably. The widow stood, steady and resolute, ready to meet them not as a beggar or outcast, but as a person who had carved her place in a world that demanded vigilance, courage, and unwavering self-belief. By the time the group reached her camp, she felt an unexpected sense of anticipation. Their leader, an older man with deep-set eyes and a voice that carried weight across the plains, nodded in recognition. It was a subtle acknowledgement, yet profound in its meaning. Her journey, her perseverance, and her strength had not gone unnoticed. In that silent moment, the widow understood that trials could not diminish the spirit determined to rise, and that the land, harsh and unforgiving as it seemed, rewarded those who dared to honor its lessons with resilience, integrity, and heart. The morning light stretched across the plains, illuminating the widow's small camp and the faces of the approaching tribe members. Their horses snorted softly, stamping the dust beneath their hooves, and a subtle murmur ran through their ranks. The widow felt neither fear nor apprehension. Instead, she felt a quiet power growing within her, a recognition that her past trials had shaped her into someone who could stand undaunted before the judgments of others. Her heart, once heavy with rejection, now beat with the rhythm of survival and defiance. One of the younger tribe members stepped forward, carrying a bundle of herbs and a small carved talisman. "We have watched your actions," he said, his voice respectful yet firm. "Your kindness to the land, your respect for its spirits, and the courage you have shown in the face of betrayal have not gone unnoticed." The widow listened carefully, understanding that these words were more than acknowledgement. They were an invitation to join a world where deeds spoke louder than lineage or circumstance. As they circled the campfire, the widow realized that she had earned their trust not by wealth, title, or persuasion, but through the quiet acts of integrity and courage she had shown. Each moment of compassion, every step taken with honor, had been a thread in a tapestry that was now being recognized. Her connection to the plains, to the people, and to the life she had begun to rebuild was undeniable, a bond forged in resilience and respect rather than fear or obligation. The chief himself finally emerged from the shadows of a canyon ridge, his presence commanding attention and reverence. His gaze met hers, and for a long moment, no words were exchanged, only recognition. He had seen many travelers, many wanderers, but few had embodied the balance of strength and humility that she carried naturally. It was a rare acknowledgment in a harsh world, one that could change the trajectory of a person's life with a single glance. By midday, the widow found herself standing alongside the tribe, no longer an outsider, but a participant in a story far larger than herself. The weight of isolation lifted, replaced by a sense of purpose and belonging that she had thought lost forever. And in the quiet moments between the wind and the whispering leaves, she understood a profound truth. The West did not reward despair. It rewarded those who acted with courage, heart, and unwavering commitment to the principles that mattered most. Evening descended, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet. The widow sat by her fire, the embers casting a soft glow on the faces of her new allies. Conversations flowed in a language she was just beginning to understand, yet she felt the warmth of connection and acceptance envelop her. The trials of the past days, the betrayal, the expulsion, the isolation, seemed to dissolve into the night, leaving only the certainty that she had found her place in a world that had once rejected her. As the stars emerged one by one, the chief shared stories of the tribe's history, of warriors and healers, of battles and blessings. Each tale carried a lesson, and the widow listened with rapt attention, her mind absorbing wisdom that transcended generations. She realized that belonging was not given lightly, nor was it earned through entitlement. It was forged through respect, action, and the courage to stand steadfast when the world turned its back. In the quiet of the night, the widow reflected on her journey. She had faced rejection, experienced betrayal, and walked alone through unforgiving landscapes. Yet every hardship had honed her senses, sharpened her resolve, and deepened her empathy. The strength that had lain dormant within her was now awakened, manifesting not as anger or revenge, but as wisdom, courage, and a quiet yet undeniable authority. Suddenly, the soft sound of footsteps reached her. A young warrior approached, carrying a small bundle of firewood and a water skin, a silent gesture of respect and trust. In that moment, the widow understood that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple through the lives of others, creating bonds stronger than fear or animosity. Her heart swelled with gratitude, not just for the tribe's acceptance, but for the clarity that had emerged from the pain she had endured. As the camp settled into the serenity of night, the widow gazed at the horizon, where the first hints of moonlight shimmered over the canyon. She felt a sense of peace she had not known in years, a recognition that her journey had transformed her in ways she could never have imagined. The West had tested her, pushed her to the brink, and demanded everything. But in return, it had revealed her true power, her resilience, and the unyielding spirit that could no longer be silenced or overlooked. The following dawn broke with an air of anticipation, the plains shimmering in a golden light that seemed almost magical. Word had spread among the tribe of the widow's courage and integrity, and a gathering began to form near the riverbank. Faces young and old turned toward her, their expressions a mixture of curiosity, respect, and cautious reverence. The widow, aware of the eyes upon her, felt the power of her journey crystallize. Every hardship, every betrayal, had led to this moment where she could no longer be ignored. The chief stepped forward, raising his hand to call for silence. His voice, steady and commanding, recounted the widow's acts of compassion, her resilience through suffering, and the unwavering dignity she had displayed even when abandoned by those she trusted. The words struck the hearts of all present, and a hush fell over the crowd. Even those who had doubted her now looked upon her with admiration, realizing that true strength often emerged from the most unassuming of people. Then, the widow herself spoke, her voice carrying through the crisp morning air. She recounted her journey, not with bitterness or complaint, but with honesty and clarity. Each word resonated with the tribe, as if echoing through generations of silent wisdom. Her story became more than personal. It became a testament to courage, perseverance, and the transformative power of integrity. Every listener could feel the weight of her experiences, the fire within her that had refused to be extinguished by cruelty or rejection. As she spoke, a sudden stillness fell over the assembled tribe. The young warriors, elders, and families all sensed that something extraordinary was unfolding. The widow's presence alone seemed to bend the energy of the plains, commanding attention and respect in a way that went beyond mere words. In that moment, the widow's spirit, tempered by hardship and refined by compassion, became a force impossible to ignore, a presence that could unite, protect, and inspire those around her. By midday, the initial awe transformed into collective action. The tribe moved as one, surrounding the widow, not as intruders or skeptics, but as allies and protectors. The sense of unity and purpose was palpable, and even the skeptical members could no longer deny the power that radiated from someone who had faced adversity head-on and emerged not only unbroken, but elevated. It was clear that the widow was no longer simply a survivor. She was a guardian, a symbol, a catalyst for something greater than any one person could comprehend. The afternoon sun burned high, casting long shadows that danced across the plains like silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. Suddenly, a challenge arrived. A neighboring clan, skeptical of the widow's newfound influence, rode toward the camp, their presence a test of the strength and cohesion the tribe had built. The widow stood calmly, observing the approaching riders with a measured gaze. She knew that fear could not dictate action, that hesitation could not protect her new family. Only courage, combined with strategy and empathy, could turn this moment into a testament of true leadership. The chief nodded toward her, silently acknowledging the choice she had made in embracing this responsibility. Without a word, the widow stepped forward, her stance firm, her eyes meeting the clan leaders. There was no arrogance in her demeanor, only the unshakable confidence of someone who had endured betrayal, loss, and abandonment, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and capable of influencing events far beyond herself. Her presence alone shifted the energy in the air, compelling attention and respect. The rival clan hesitated, sensing the unusual power emanating from the widow and the unwavering loyalty of her tribe. Murmurs spread among their ranks, questioning their approach and the consequences of misjudging someone whose courage and integrity had already proven unassailable. The widow, understanding their hesitation, extended a gesture of peace, not weakness, an offer of understanding, a promise of dialogue rather than bloodshed. It was a display of strength that only true wisdom could command. By sunset, the conflict was averted, and the neighboring clan retreated, their respect earned not through combat, but through the widow's combination of courage, moral clarity, and strategic foresight. The tribe erupted in quiet celebration, the unity forged through the trials of the day solidifying their bond. The widow, once cast out and abandoned, had become the very embodiment of guardianship and resilience, a beacon for those who believe that actions define legacy more than titles or birthright. As night fell, the widow returned to her cabin, surrounded by those who now recognized her value and purpose. The firelight flickered against her face, highlighting the serenity and quiet pride that had replaced the fear and sorrow of past days. She understood that her journey was far from over, but the trials had imbued her with a clarity and strength that would guide every step forward. The plains whispered around her, a testament to the enduring power of courage, integrity, and the heart that refuses to be silenced. The next morning, the widow awoke to a chorus of whispers and gentle footsteps outside her cabin. The tribe had gathered once again, not in fear, but in reverence, drawn by the knowledge that her courage and compassion had altered the course of their lives. Children peeked from behind the elders, wide-eyed and curious, sensing a story unfolding that they would remember for the rest of their days. Even the chief, usually stoic and unyielding, approached her with a rare warmth in his eyes, acknowledging that she had become more than a protector. She had become a symbol of hope. Word had traveled swiftly beyond the tribe, reaching distant valleys and neighboring settlements. Those who had once dismissed her presence began to recognize the influence she wielded, not through weapons or intimidation, but through the integrity and generosity that defined every action. The widow, fully aware of this growing attention, embraced her role with humility, knowing that her actions now carried weight far beyond her own life. Her strength was no longer private. It had become a force that could inspire unity and courage in even the most divided hearts. The widow's interactions with the tribe deepened, as she shared wisdom gathered from her trials and the harsh lessons of the plains. She guided the warriors in strategy, counsel, and foresight, instilling a sense of responsibility that went beyond mere survival. Families began to rely on her judgment, trusting her to act not only for the tribe's safety, but also for its moral compass. In every decision, her past, her betrayals, her losses, her resilience, served as a guiding light, reminding everyone that true leadership often emerges from those who have known the depths of adversity. As the day unfolded, a sense of anticipation rippled through the plains. A challenge approached, not one of immediate danger, but of proving the widow's influence in tangible terms. A delegation from a distant tribe arrived, seeking guidance, alliance, and recognition. They were met with the widow's calm and deliberate demeanor, each word carefully chosen, each gesture reflecting the experience of someone who had endured the trials of abandonment and emerged not just intact, but profoundly empowered. Her presence commanded attention, her words carried conviction, and her actions demonstrated the transformative potential of courage tempered with compassion. By sunset, the delegation departed with a newfound respect and a promise of loyalty, leaving the widow and her tribe in quiet reflection. The plains seemed to exhale, the tension dissipating into the evening air as the people celebrated not just survival, but the realization that their lives had been irrevocably changed. The widow had become a fulcrum of balance and power, a living testament to the fact that even those cast aside could shape the destiny of many, and that true strength is measured by heart as much as by skill or cunning. Night fell across the plains, the stars twinkling like distant fires, silent witnesses to the trials and triumphs of the day. The widow stood at the edge of the river, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here, from rejection and despair to influence and guardianship. Each trial had forged her spirit, each moment of doubt had strengthened her resolve, and now, standing amidst those who revered her, she understood the power of integrity and courage. It was not a power of domination, but of transformation, the ability to inspire, protect, and unite. The tribe gathered around her one final time, their faces illuminated by the firelight, each one silently acknowledging the depth of her impact. The chief approached, offering a simple yet profound statement. "You are not just one of us. You are our guardian, our guide, our reminder that strength can rise from the humblest of hearts." The words, though few, resonated deeply, embodying the gratitude, respect, and awe that had taken root over the past days. In that moment, the widow's journey was no longer solitary. It had become intertwined with the lives of all those she had touched, a legacy forged through resilience and heart. As the embers glowed, the widow considered the future, knowing that challenges would continue to arise, that new trials would test the limits of courage and compassion. Yet she felt no fear, only a calm determination, understanding that every act of kindness, every moment of bravery, had created a foundation stronger than any tribe, any settlement, or any single individual could achieve alone. Her heart, once wounded and abandoned, now held the power to influence generations. The wind whispered through the plains, carrying with it stories of the widow's courage, tales that would be shared long after the fires burned out. Her actions had proven that even in a world defined by harshness and betrayal, integrity and compassion could prevail, shaping destinies and silencing doubt. In every glance, every gesture, the people saw a reflection of the possibility that one person's choices, grounded in courage and heart, could ripple outward, touching countless lives in ways unimaginable. Finally, the widow turned toward her cabin, the weight of her journey settling upon her shoulders with a comforting gravity. She knew that she had become more than she had ever imagined, that the trials of yesterday had paved the way for the guardianship she now held. And as she stepped inside the tribe behind her, she understood a profound truth. In the harsh expanse of the West, where betrayal and danger often reigned, it was courage, compassion, and an unwavering heart that would ultimately define a legend. The widow stood at the edge of the plains as the first light of dawn stretched across the horizon, reflecting on the trials that had brought her to this moment. Every betrayal, every whisper of doubt, had been a step on a path she could never have imagined, shaping her into someone whose courage and heart could inspire an entire tribe. She realized that true strength was not measured by dominance or power, but by the ability to stand firm, even when the world seemed determined to cast you aside. Her journey had proven that resilience combined with compassion could transform despair into legacy. The tribe gathered silently around her, their eyes filled with respect, awe, and gratitude. The chief, his voice steady and reverent, acknowledged her not merely as a protector, but as a guiding force whose presence had united and strengthened them all. In that moment, the widow understood that influence was not claimed through fear or force, but earned through acts of courage and unwavering integrity. The lessons she carried, the pain of rejection, the hope found in connection, and the power of standing true to oneself, would echo through generations, shaping lives far beyond the boundaries of her own story. As the wind swept across the plains, carrying the scent of sage and the whispers of the past, the widow felt a quiet clarity. She recognized that the trials she had endured were not punishments, but teachers, and that every moment of adversity had prepared her to rise above circumstance and expectation. The tribe's faith in her was a reflection of the universal truth that those who act with courage and heart leave a mark that no betrayal can erase. Even in the harshest lands, hope, honor, and kindness could flourish, leaving an enduring legacy for all who witnessed it. In the glow of the rising sun, the widow turned to the tribe, a soft smile playing across her lips, knowing that her story had become part of something far greater than herself. The challenges of yesterday had forged a guardian, a leader, and a symbol of unwavering strength. And in that moment, every heart present understood that true courage often comes from those who have faced the deepest hardships and chosen to rise with dignity, compassion, and determination. Her journey was now a beacon, a reminder that even when cast out or underestimated, one can change the course of many lives with steadfast courage and empathy. If her story touched you, let it inspire your own path. Subscribe to the channel to uncover more tales of courage, betrayal, and redemption from the untamed West. Like this video to honor the strength found in resilience, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us how you would act if faced with the same trials. Every story we share carries a lesson, and your voice can become part of this journey, reminding us all that even in the harshest landscapes, heart and bravery prevail.